We're Robin and Steve. We left you in the fog. In Apua. We're back in the Bay of Islands to prepare to sail away. Here Steve is repairing the foot pump for our freshwater tap.
Next mission, to replace the front crankshaft seal.
Accessing this part of the engine was probably the hardest part. But success.
Pumps pumped and nothing leaked.
Now time to look under the boat. This anti-foul we'd put on in December was working pretty well. So we just had to knock off a few barnacles and wipe off some slime. And then Steve winched me up the mast. While I was up there, I lubricated some blocks, checked out the rigging, and saw a stingray. Some terrible weather was on the way, so we enjoyed ourselves while the sun shone. Only a year ago, in this part of the Bay of Islands, there were some beautiful patches of seaweed. The cute fish are still there,
but now there are many more sea urchins, kina, who feast on seaweed.
Once flipped over, it seems like these fish really enjoy a kina snack, but the flipping part is a bit too spiky. Here Steve is using the speedy stitch to repair a hole in my wetsuit, so that I'll stay toasty warm. Our friend Becs told us that we simply could not leave New Zealand without seeing these toilets. So if you ever feel busting in New Zealand, head to Kawakawa so that you too can enjoy the Hundertwasser public toilets. Hundertwasser was an Austrian visual artist and architect who also worked in the field of environmental protection. We timed our toilet trip perfectly to do a bit of train spotting of the Bay of Islands vintage railway. Coincidentally, Steve and I had done a bit of a mural in our own house at one time. And on reflection, I feel like Hundertwasser would have approved of our work. This was our last chance to go bulk Whole Foods shopping. We brought our containers to fill, in the knowledge that a lot of this is not available where we'll be for the next few months. We could not have carried all of this stuff on foot, so thanks again to Becs for helping us to shop big without breaking our backs. It's embarrassing, but we had so much stuff that I couldn't even fit in the first dinghy load. As I waded ashore with the rest of the groceries, I got entertained. A barge full of fresh shellfish was being offloaded. Once back aboard Rakali, we had a lot of work to do, shuffling our provisions and storing them in a way that we could find them. Writing on the tops of tins can help us identify the tin in question. This was my opportunity to enjoy silks while I could, because bad weather was coming and then we would be at sea for about 10 days, neither of which are conducive to the aerial arts. A nasty low pressure system was on its way, so we just had to sit that out, then we would ride the leading edge of this high, out of New Zealand, to Minerva Reef. But not yet. It wouldn't be a New Zealand send-off without a gale. We dodged the debris on the way back to Apua to get some fuel and water. It was calm on the morning of our checkout. We treated ourselves to one more cafe experience before hitting the open ocean, where there aren't many cafes.
Preparing for a sea crossing is becoming a little more normal, and yet it's still pretty weird. We cleared the decks, set and checked our route on the GPS, 792 nautical miles to go. And as we were leaving the Bay of Islands, the winds picked way up. We put a reef in the mainsail. The wind was forecast to creep around to our stern, so Steve put on the preventer to prevent accidental jibes. We hadn't even left the Bay of Islands before the second reef in the mainsail was needed. Farewell land. Hello wobbly new reality. With the Genoa furled a little bit, Steve could watch a sailing video.
I was going to show you a video of the boat sinking this morning, but I thought, no, I won't do that today.
Yeah. This was to be the last signs we saw of humanity, apart from satellites, until we reached Fiji. We are not a race boat, but we were doing 7 knots. For us, that's fast, people. We knew that in a day or two, the 3-metre seas were to ease to 2. After not being at sea for so long, it was a huge relief that our tummies were just fine. We had healthy appetites the whole time. It's quite entertaining to watch the stove and everything on the ship dance, including the towels. Yep, our life was going to be bumpy and on an angle. May as well get used to it. As forecast, the wind did come to our stern. The Genoa was furled and the whisker pole was set to bring the Genoa to the other side. And this is how it would be for most of our journey. Slowed down a little bit, but we didn't have to rush, which was a nice feeling. Steve caught our one and only fish of the trip, mahi-mahi, delicious. Steve thought he'd cleaned the cockpit pretty well and couldn't figure out where the smell came from. There it is. This poor squid ended up on our cockpit wall. Farewell, dead squid. Eventually, it was spinnaker weather. It expended some of its energy on dancing rather than propelling us forward. But it was enough to keep us chugging along. On day 3 of our journey, we discovered that we had a stowaway. We got a bit of a surprise when this welcome swallow came out of the sail bag. And it made itself more and more at home. It actually turned out that there were 2 of these birds. They're not seabirds, and by now we were way out at sea. They eat insects, and we try not to leave with insects. We were their island, and they flew away and came back many times, and perched in very precarious places. They were out of place here, in seas 4 kilometres deep, all around, with our boat their only refuge.
Baby. Baby.
It all got a bit dismal, but this fairy tale was never going to end well. If it's ever smooth enough, it's nice to do a bit of ballet bar, so that my legs remember how to be legs. And so the rest of me stays happy. It was so calm by now that it was time to take some reefs out of the sail. We were working on 4-hour shifts this trip, and this is the end of my 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift. By now we were pretty tired, but we do prefer 4-hour watches to 3-hour watches. By now, it was a case of look at which vegetables are going rotten and eat them. Tragically, we were running low on avocados. But apart from that setback, morale was high, and conditions were perfect. When it's this calm, it's fun to venture out of the cockpit and hang out on the bow. In this case, doing some abdominal exercises. Go me! The 300 nautical miles to North Minerva Reef. And yet another casualty aboard Ricali, a tiny flying fish. By now we had one welcome swallow left. Welcome swallows generally mate for life, and we assume that our 2 stowaways set sail together. What a tumultuous time for this bird. What must have seemed a cosy place to build a nest ended in tragedy. This one bird continued to come and go, and then it was gone. It was nice to meet our stowaways, and sad to see them leave/die. But a good thing that we didn't smuggle wildlife into Fiji. That's South Minerva Reef right there. Not long to go now. Time to furl the genoa and head upwind into North Minerva for some respite from the rolls within the lagoon. This is a huge lagoon, about 6.8 kilometres across. A calm little patch of water, surrounded by seas over a kilometre deep. And we were the only people here. But we weren't to spend the night here. It looks nice now, but in a couple of days, it would be blowing about 50 knots here for a long time. So we gave ourselves a few hours to fix things like this broken sail slug, cook things without having to hang on, like this lentil dal, clean things including ourselves, and then see the reef. We enjoyed the novelty of shallow water.
didn't have time for even a nap, but we did feel refreshed and revitalised as we left Minerva Reef and set off for Fiji.